Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 97 of the Sensible Sociopath podcast.
Woohoo!
We are here live on a Friday night if you're with us, and we are probably still alive if you're listening to us later.
Hopefully.
Even with COVID, Roma. God bless. God bless. Best wishes. So, Roma, I'm going to get it right this time.
Okay.
This is the Sensible Sociopath podcast, the places where the truth is spoken and the rules are broken.
Nice one. Good job.
That probably wasn't the best. But
Well, you know.
so we have a great episode today. You can live chat with us if you're driving at a high speed or if you just want to say hello. We do have our in-studio producer.
My long friend, time friend, and she's a friend. She's
Hi, guys.
my friend.
That is Roma Romerica Rifkin. And today we have a special return guest who is an author. He is a traveler. He is a paranormal researcher, and he is a psychedelic warrior. You can find him on Instagram. He is Chaz of the Dead, and CHAZ. And you can also find his book on Amazon, which is Paranormal Expeditions: The Hunt for Friendship, a story of UFOs, Nazis, psychedelics, and an expedition to the edge of the world. If you have not seen our episode on that, it was episode 90 something, somewhere in there.
I don't remember.
Or late
It's a good
80s,
one.
early 90s.
Yeah.
There's a cow getting sucked up into a spaceship
Yes.
on that one. So
It's hard
I
to know.
love the cover art for that one.
Oh, nice.
It was. I'm gonna have to steal it. I'm also gonna have to steal that introduction, make that my Instagram bio.
There you
like
go.
Psychedelic warrior.
I
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
I was going to say psychedelic traveler, but I know in the UK, the word traveler has some negative connotations. So I went early with the traveler part. And I didn't say world because I wanted you to seem like a gypsy, a dirty gypsy.
Oh, God.
I've met many a gypsy, and they're very proud to be gypsies, and they're always smoking joints. They're a good group. They get a bad rap.
Aren't they Romani or
Yeah, the Romanian.
Romani?
But
Romani?
you know, I've noticed in my travels. I don't want to sound insensitive, but in my experience, only like college kids call them Romani, and like everyone I've met is like, nah, gypsies. We're gypsies. You know, gypsy. And that's how they introduce themselves. So there's kind of a blending there, you know, of different groups, and it's a catch term that doesn't necessarily always apply.
I guess it probably offends the college students, you know, because they're from the politically correct realm where, you know, gypsies probably do knife fighting and, you know.
Yeah, some say it's a slur. I was teaching from a National Geographic book from like 8 years ago, and it used that term a couple times. So
They call
who
them
knows?
gyppos.
I have no idea. The word police I'm sure they'll correct me.
Very nice. So, Chaz, you've had a little bit of coronavirus stuff. Do you wanna tell us about what was going on with you?
I did have my girlfriend caught it.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure she got it from me because I was feeling pretty sick the week before. But when I tested, I came up negative. So it's
were you not
okay.
double masking?
You know, it's the Wild West over here in Florida. You could just do whatever you want. So, you know, I picked it up here or there. I work in the tourism industry right now, so I'm sure someone gave it to me. But you know, we quarantined for a couple weeks, or it was about 10 days, week and a half, and all better now, and ready to get our poisoned vaccines.
Gotcha. Did you now when you say you work in the tourism industry, are you working in the Disneyland now? Do you know anything about the kids who die there and they sneak?
Renting condos right now is a part-time gig during the high season here.
You're not a male
before
escort.
I go on my next paranormal adventure.
Very nice. Have you been on any adventures since we last saw you?
Yeah, I've done a couple local things, a lot of weird research projects. I've actually really been diving into that bee anecdote
Oh.
that popped up last time. And I went on a couple other shows and talked about it, but I ended up coming across a guy called a Russian scientist named Viktor Gerbinikov.
Ooh, that sounds spooky.
Yeah.
And he died in like 2001, and there's like a museum that he set up and things. A fairly respected scientist, and he claimed that he built a little flying platform using the exoskeletons of insects. Now, he didn't say which kind of insect because he was worried about people killing them off and like harvesting them for UFO parts or whatever. But I think we've guessed what it could be. It was probably the bees.
What type of scientist was he?
He was actually an entomologist.
Okay.
He was an insect scientist, and he came across it completely by accident. He was studying these weird patterns in the exoskeletons of large flying insects.
Interesting.
And he noticed that for like a second under the microscope that it would float before it would come to rest. And he stitched a bunch of them together and found that they could like float sustain themselves floating. And then it gets super weird because he said once he did that, he put a thumbtack on it and the thumbtack disappeared and then reappeared. And he got really dizzy and like nauseous, and like he was, kind of tripped out for a minute afterwards. And eventually he built a little platform, and there's pictures of this you can find online. He built a little platform with handlebars, and he said that it could float and fly at high speeds.
Wait, did he just watch Aladdin right before he did that?
It is. It's like a weird. It looks ridiculous. It absolutely does. But he's claiming that it would fly. And that when people observed him flying from the ground, they would see geometric shapes. They'd see flying saucers or triangles and these weird kind of glowing shapes instead of just seeing a little dude on a platform.
Weird.
And because of that, he thought that all UFO sightings were just, other,
guys on platforms,
governments or guys on platforms was his main takeaway from that. So it's a pretty wild story. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, when you were talking about it, you're like, and then it gets kind of weird. I'm like, okay, so weirder than stitching together the
definitely
carcasses.
Weirder. So he says like the landing sites. He says one, the landing sites, and two, if you drop something off of the platform, it doesn't fall to the ground; it just disappears. And wherever you did that, it'll cause poltergeist activity, like stuff will start moving around. And no, he hits the paranormal playbook. He cites all of these weird phenomenon connected to his little flying platform.
Is this in a book? Where'd you find this?
I found this on some really obscure forums, and then I used the Wayback Machine to dig up a site called KeelyNet, where the owner of this site, a few years back, he was in contact with Gerbinikov's son, and he got translated portions of Gerbinikov's book and posted them up on this website. And there's a few people on YouTube who have like recreated some of his devices, and they do kind of work a little bit like how they're described. I tried to build one though, and it was nonsense. So it's kind of a little bit up for interpretation. But just to find a scientist who said, "Oh yeah, UFOs are made from bees," was a really weird kind of confirmation of our conversation we had in the last episode.
Yeah, that is weird.
You might need to find someone a little more down to earth, I think, than a Russian.
Reputable.
Yeah, just somebody that's perhaps didn't go that far and start
Well,
talking.
I'm planning to go visit his relatives and go see his museum and see if
Oh, that's exciting.
that's working out.
Yeah.
But right now Russia's not accepting United States visas, so
Oh. Hey, just
I
go down
guess
to
I'll have to
Mar-a-Lago,
wait for
talk to
World
Trump,
War
he'll get you in with
III.
Putin.
Yeah, right.
So, that would be something I would be interested if you get good pictures from the, I don't know, it might be one of those museums where they don't let you take pictures. But I'm sure if you gave them some vodka, they'd probably let you take it.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing is it's like a weird agricultural museum. It's like and it's done in Soviet style, like it's just a big block building in the middle of snowy Siberia. And supposedly it holds all of this guy's weird inventions. I don't know if it has the flying craft itself, but some of his other weird inventions and things. And he was credited with he has a couple patents. I've found these weird Russian patents online in his name, and he's also been credited with like some legitimate discoveries in the realm of entomology. Like he was a respected professor. He taught at a university about insects, and he discovered a weird effect in these type of parasites of alfalfa plants. It was some kind of weird thing he discovered, but he was a legitimate scientist, and towards the end of his life he was like, oh yeah, I built a UFO. And it's just kind of this weird turn that he took. So I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty interesting.
And have either of you ever met an entomologist?
No.
Like a legit one? Okay.
I met a guy who he did zoology with a focus on entomology, but he wasn't like a full-blown.
Yeah. So I had a microbiology professor who was an entomologist. He was an entomologist at he was, I don't know, the head of entomology at somewhere, but he was teaching on the side microbiology. And he was probably one of the most socially awkward people I've ever met in my life.
I could see that.
Very, very nice. Just like
he's probably on the spectrum.
Totally on the spectrum. Oh my God! Like, got to the end of the spectrum and just backed it off a little. But brilliant, just completely brilliant. And
yeah, the bug guys tend to be a little weird. I mean, bugs are gross.
And his study was actually wasps, and so he those paper making wasps. Chaz, your camera went out.
Yeah, we lost you, Chaz.
Yep, hold on, I'm trying to get it back for you.
What he did was he gave those paper making wasps different color construction paper, and so they would tear it apart and then build these beautiful, intricate
hives
as they layered them. Yeah. So it would just be these crazy rainbows, psychedelic. I don't know why what the point of it all was.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool. And I was like,
that's interesting because
they're the worst.
Gerbinikov, one of the things he supposedly discovered, and he kind of puts as a linchpin in this research, was that insect nests give off this special magnetic field. And he called it the CSE effect, the cavity structure effect. And he said like a handful of straws gives off this effect. Any kind of like repeating of a geometric pattern like that, but especially insect nests. And what kind of really drew me to his research is he says this effect causes all the same kind of things that one that UFO witnesses describe. And exactly what I described in my book was the comparison between psychedelics and UFOs. So he listed this thing and it matches with my list in this super weird way. But he says, yeah, if you are walking in the woods and there's a bunch of bee nests, you could be struck with this weird sudden psychedelic effect.
Interesting.
And it's bizarre, but it's interesting when you think about those, missing 411 cases, the people who go lost and get lost in state parks.
That would be so cool. If that was the reason.
Yeah, maybe they're just wandering into a psychedelic field and they just get tripped out.
Yeah.
Well, Africanized
Because of the
bees.
bees.
Yeah. I know why people don't come back from Africanized bees' nests. But that would be because of, being stung to death and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's the extension. He kind of implies that the scarab beetle was it was holy in Egypt because that's what they used to levitate the blocks for the pyramid. Like, it gets into these really kind of like ancient aliens kind of. It goes deep. So it's an absolutely crazy theory, but it's so weird that it lined up with our weird bee anecdotes.
Yeah. I think insects are one of the most interesting things because they're so unlike us. You know, that if aliens are like somehow in some way acting like bees or using the same whatever it is, I guess, technology,
like they're insects.
Yeah. It's very interesting stuff. It freaks us out.
Yeah, no
It's
kidding.
like spiders and snakes and anything that's not like us, we don't tend to be super comfortable with. But the scarab beetles, that's another reference back to Aladdin. So I'm pretty sure in 94.
This is an Aladdin-inspired story.
Yeah, do you remember the video game back in the day?
Oh, it was so fun.
Throwing the apples,
Mhm.
scarab beetles. I think they were golden. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Arabian Nights.
Well, I believe, though, I was brought here today to talk about another possibly inspired by fiction story.
Yeah, so not last episode, a couple episodes back, we had Dave Weiss on to talk about flat Earth, and you had messaged me saying you needed to talk about, you wanted to debate him about inner Earth or hollow Earth, and so I was like, you got to come on. So here you are, and then you have this really weird purple screen going on, which
It is bizarre. They're messing with my feed.
Do you have an insect nest right below your webcam?
It's possible. I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah. What's it? That's a CSE. You're getting some kind of a cavern.
Or it's the entities from the hollow Earth trying to keep the secrets that they have down there.
that makes sense to me.
Oh, snap.
The hollow Earth theory is something I've been fascinated with for a long time, and it's one that's been in pop culture. I think it was in the Godzilla versus King Kong movie. They went into the hollow Earth for a bit. It's a thing that's been around for a while. But there's this subsect of people who take it very seriously, kind of like the flat Earth. And I'm not necessarily one of the people who take it that seriously, but I'm very intrigued by the stories from these people and from people who, have had experiences in the inner Earth.
Uh-oh. We're having connection issues.
As it were, and I do think there's something legitimate occurring. I'm not really convinced by that one.
Okay, so you're frozen.
Yeah.
And your audio's all jacked up. Can you still hear us well? And he's completely frozen.
I'm sure he'll there you go. He reset and everything will be good.
Uh-oh. See? Yeah. They're trying to hide the message.
That's right.
Can you guys hear me all right?
We can now, yeah.
So go back just about a minute to where...
Okay. So I was just saying I reached out to David and he declined the debate. He said he doesn't do debates.
Okay.
But generously recommended someone else.
Who do you recommend?
I would have to pull up his name. We're still in talks and getting one of these kind of things set up. But another guy who has a podcast, focused on the flat Earth theory. I actually personally found a weird scrap of information in a 1960s book by Robert Anton Wilson. that claims the Flat Earth Society was just a Discordian psyop. The Discordians are this secret group of magicians, Hail Eris. And they supposedly made the Flat Earth theory as like a weird, prank to pull on academia and on, religious people.
Ooh, I like that.
Seem to work. It's in a way. So that's what I believe the flat Earth is. The hollow Earth, though, I am much more intrigued by its origins, and its origins depend on who you ask. It really does depend on who you ask. For most people, for the traditional hollow earther, they're gonna start with the Admiral Byrd story.
Yeah.
And you guys posted a good map on Instagram today, and that's kind of the idea of the Admiral Byrd story. And that's the idea that there's these big entrances into the hollow Earth. It's a big hollow sphere, kind of like you've seen in the movies. There's dinosaurs and an ecosystem and cities and stuff inside of it. And there's big holes. You can fly an airplane and sail a ship through them at the North and South Pole. And there's kind of a global conspiracy to keep people away from the North Pole and the South Pole because of this. It's the same kind of logic they use in the flat Earth, right? You're not able to go there because it's actually just a giant ice wall.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is, how would they patrol it if it was really that big? But anyways,
your mind, that's how.
But it's the same kind of idea that the poles are these off-limit spaces. And that's actually not really true. Anyone can go to the North Pole if you have a bunch of money. It's like $100,000.
Yeah.
You can just go on a boat. There's plenty of boats that do it, that they're cruises. They're pretty luxurious. They're pretty nice. The South Pole, it is all research stations, but you can like get a job as a janitor or as a cook. And you can just go down there.
That's stupid.
Well, I'm looking into it because I personally want to do a paranormal expedition, North Pole and South Pole, because there's all these, crazy theories. And I'd love to go down and talk to people who live there and work there. I'm sure they've seen some weird stuff.
You would think.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna go be a janitor for 6 months in the freezing cold.
Janitor / male escort.
Yeah, whatever it takes to stay warm at night.
Gets lonely. Yep.
But the Byrd story is that Admiral Byrd, he was a war hero in both the Great Wars. And
they're all great.
In 1926, he flew to the North Pole. And then he was part of the Operation High Jump in 1946, which was this operation, a military operation in Antarctica. And supposedly it was a mapping operation, but they brought up a bunch of military tech, and conspiracy theorists say this was the Battle of Antarctica, that there was a Nazi base down there, and that they, had this big battle. And some say we won and we squashed the secret Nazi force. Others say we lost.
Well, I was going to say, I read somewhere, and this was from like Flat Earth Theory, but they were talking about Admiral Byrd and his crews or whatever were talking about how the Nazis had an invisible shield that the planes were flying into, and like planes were just exploding in midair. They couldn't figure, they thought, I don't know, it's a thing.
Yeah, there was force fields, and then the Nazis had flying saucers that they came back at us with.
Yeah.
Supposedly they won this, and most of the versions of the story, the Nazis won the battle. In the Hollow Earth version, it's because they've been working with the Inner Earth people since the beginning. And this is part of the Admiral Byrd story. So again, Admiral Byrd did go on these expeditions and these operations. People are debating what occurred on them. And in the 1960s, at this point, a journal was released, supposedly his secret journal. And it's highly suspect. Like, it's, you know, it's not believable in the slightest, really. But it claims that on that 1926 expedition to the North Pole, he flew into the center of the earth, and he met a city and society of tall blonde aliens, and they had swastikas all over the place, and they were like kind of chill but kind of weird. And
This sounds a lot like a book I read.
yeah. So interestingly enough, the Vril, the Coming Race, was a fiction book that came out in 1871. And it became a big part of the kind of Nazi occultism and mythology. And it was about essentially that. It was the bird story, where there was a tall blonde group of, you know, the Aryan race, and it was this, you know, source of occult mythology as we kind of know it today. And it was from the Hollow Earth. That's where they were hiding. So the Admiral Byrd's journal kind of repeats that in the North Pole journey. And then, of course, it goes into the battle with the Nazis. And yes, the Nazis have gotten this tech from the inner earth, and they won, and they had to come to some kind of agreement, some kind of, like, you know, peace deal. And that's why no one can go to Antarctica.
So the book in 1871, so that was like the original whatever document that the Nazis, and then I guess you were saying Byrd's journal refers to it.
Yeah, Byrd's journal, the one that came out in the 60s, again after his death, and a while after his death and things. That one, it kind of plagiarizes the elements of the Vril book. Though the earliest fiction in the West was Simsonia by John Cleve Sims, and that was 1820. And he wrote this book, and he was earnest in it. He believed the earth was hollow, and he was trying to get funding from Congress to go and explore the hollow earth. And actually, John Quincy Adams voted yes.
Wow.
He said, yeah, we should give this guy money to go into the hollow earth. Unfortunately, he was outvoted, and the mission never took off.
Damn it.
But 44 years later, Jules Verne comes out with Journey to the Center of the Earth, and that kind of put, you know, the hollow earth mythology firmly into the, you know, Western mindset. And that's kind of, again, when it kind of took on this more serious tone, where people were like, yeah, the earth could be hollow. And again, this was also when the original flat earthers were taking off in England. They were going on lecture tours and things, and debating academics that the earth was flat. It was kind of this weird theorizing era in the, you know, 1860s, 70s, and 80s. More books came out at the turn of the century in the 1900s. There was The Smoky God, and one called Itadorfa. It's Aphrodite spelled backwards. I don't know how you spell it. But both of them, I believe, written by American writers and pretty popular at their time. And yeah, about journeys into the hollow earth. Fiction works, but, you know, I believe the Aphrodite one was kind of sold as maybe this is real, maybe it's not. And it was kind of that kind of tone. But up until it kind of died off after that. You know, fiction writers stopped writing about it, and no one was really writing that many serious, you know, stories about Hollow Earth or anything like that, up until the 1940s. So it had this lull between the 1908 and 1940. And in 1940, this was the start of the Shaver mystery. And it was called this because it was spurred on by this guy named Dick Shaver, which
All right.
hilarious name.
Wait.
Come on, man.
I mean, Richard. Most of the academics try to call him Richard Shaver, but
You
it was
can't.
Dick.
Yeah.
He was Dick Shaver.
He's very informal.
Oh shit.
And he was a pretty weird dude. In his later life, he like made these like rock sculptures and
Who did?
things like Dick Shaver.
These
he
nuts.
shaved some rocks and
Got it.
Sorry.
he made these rock sculptures that he said could talk. He was a weird guy.
I guess.
But he sent a letter to Amazing Stories magazine about
You
the
think they
Hollow
believed
Earth.
it? Yeah. Dick Shaver. Gotcha.
Mr. Shaver.
Yeah.
Mr. Shaver put his razors away and he wrote a letter to,
Yeah, he went to Antarctica.
to Amazing Stories magazine. And the editor at the time was a young dude named last name Palmer. I forget his first name.
Dick Palmer.
I can't remember anything past Dick Shaver at this point.
Oh my god.
He like glommed onto this story. He was like, all right, this is insane ramblings, but I'm gonna make it into a story. And Shaver had told about the Hollow Earth. He said they spoke in this like language that was a root of all other languages, and that there were the Teros, which were the good people, and the Deros, which were the evil, robotic, reptilian type people that lived in the Teros. I'm going to be up here, and then the Deros. The Deros.
It's like you have night vision down below. It's like
the
you're putting on a
Deros.
puppet show.
And these evil robot Deros were obsessed with like torture, specifically torturing women in like horrible sexual ways.
That makes sense.
And these letters, he published the first one, and the readership of American Stories jumped up by thousands. People were really interested. And so he went and met Shaver, and he bought all of his weird writings and ramblings. And Palmer would go in and he would add narrative to them. He would, take the ideas and these ramblings and he'd kind of weave them into a story and publish them. And the weirdest kind of effect was that he started getting thousands of letters from other people who were like, oh yeah, the Hollow Earth is real. They're torturing me and they're like sending me psychotic messages and things like that. And a bunch of these weird paranoid people reached out and were like, yeah, this is real. This is 100% happening.
Well,
Like
this reminds. I was gonna say this reminds me of Hellier. They had
it has a lot of that kind of that attitude to it. And when in the later part of Hellier, when they get the letter from that woman in jail who's rambling and kind of crazy, it's that kind of mentality. And Palmer was the kind of first person to like witness this in a mass scale, because he got thousands of these letters saying the same thing.
How were these people being tortured? So they were being tortured from within the flat Earth,
Hollow Earth,
or the Hollow Earth? Sorry.
So it's kind of like gang
telepathically?
stalking. If you've ever seen any of those gang stalking videos on YouTube,
no.
and if you haven't, go down that rabbit hole one day, because it's weird.
Isn't it where people feel like they're being followed by bunches of other people and like
Yeah,
they see
they're
people
convinced
everywhere?
that there's this grand conspiracy following them. And the reason the YouTube videos are so weird is most of them are from the the quote unquote victim's perspective. It's the people, like a person going up to the mailman and saying, "Why are you stalking me? Why are you doing this?" And like some mailman being like, "Lady, I've never seen you before in my life." It's a really bizarre kind of phenomenon.
Are we sure this isn't just schizophrenia?
Well, that's definitely the medical term for it. I actually have a quote here from John Keel, the famous Mothman investigator about this Palmer situation. I think he kind of hits the nail on the head. He said, quote, "Palmer had accidentally tapped a huge, previously unrecognized audience. Nearly every community has at least one person who complains constantly to the local police that someone, usually a neighbor, is aiming a terrible ray gun at their house. The ray, they claim, is ruining their health, causing their plants to die, turning their bread moldy, making their hair and teeth fall out, and broadcasting weird voices into their heads. Psychiatrists call these ray victims paranoid schizophrenics. For the most part, these paranoiacs are harmless and usually elderly," which I like that note. Throws the old people under the bus.
Making me lose control of my bowels.
Come on, man.
Occasionally, however, the voices they hear urge them to perform destructive acts, particularly arson, he claims. I don't know why he says arson, but he says they are a distrustful lot of loners by nature and very suspicious of everyone, including the government and all figures of authority. In earlier times, they thought that they were hearing voices from God or the devil. Today, they often blame the CIA or space being for their woes. They naturally gravitate to eccentric causes and organizations which reflect their own fears and insecurities, advocating bizarre political philosophies and reinforcing their peculiar belief systems. And Palmer unintentionally gave thousands of these people a voice.
Interesting.
So he kind of created a mini 4chan in his magazine at the time. And their QAnon was the Hollow Earth, and they were obsessed with it. And his magazine went from selling 20,000 copies to 250,000 copies. I mean, it went from being a small time, nonsense magazine to being one of the most popular weird fiction ones out there. And it was because of this shaver mystery and the adding these people's stories and letters. He would just add to it, and it became this weird paranoid conspiracy long before the internet existed.
Now, is Dick Shaver magazine still in print?
They did, I think it was the Shaver Chronicles or something. After Amazing Stories died off, they did try to revive it. And he was an artist. He became pretty successful from the whole thing. It turned out okay for him in the end. For a weird paranoid guy, because he's just one of these people.
That's what I was just going to ask, if he was one of them.
Yeah, it seems like he was one of them. Again, most of his writings was just paranoid nonsense that Palmer went in and edited into stories. He actually, his other editor at the time, he asked him to read the first letter, and the editor said, "Well, this is just nonsense," and tossed it out. And Palmer was like, "No." And he fished it out of the bin. He's like, "I can make this into a story." And the editor, years later, was like, "He fucking proved me. He got me," because
that editor went on to make BuzzFeed. That was the first clickbait, articles ever written.
Yeah, and it's still generating clickbait to this day. I mean, the Hollow Earth is part of the subculture. But it's also, I want it to be noted that the North and South Pole aren't the only entrances. I've got a couple entrances listed here. Hold on.
Let's see, Detroit.
Together.
Chicago.
Yeah, Minneapolis.
Actually, you know what? There's a bunch in the U.S. I kind of minimized them to some of the, I think, more convincing ones. But on the East Coast, there's, of course, the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Again,
Which
that's
they talk about in
the
Hell
Hellier
Air.
Zone. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of the largest cave system in the world, is underneath there.
Wow.
Uh, of course, people say those caves eventually lead to the Hollow Earth if you follow them. There's Brown Mountain in North Carolina. There's the Brown Mountain Lights. It's a well-known phenomenon. And there's been books about the Hollow Earth there, back into the 1900s. Lots of claims of people, entering caves there and going into the secret bases and those kinds of things. On the West Coast, there's Mount Shasta in California.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys are familiar.
Shout
That
out to
one's-
Mount Shasta.
Yeah, that one's more hippy dippy.
Did you know that that's where the Black Bear Diner was originated? You probably don't have those in Florida.
I don't know what a Black Bear Diner is,
It's
but it
just
sounds
delicious.
lovely.
It's a diner.
I'm gonna go eat there tomorrow.
Are you?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
better than a Denny's?
Yes, much
Yeah,
better.
you think so?
It's like a Denny's with a bigger parking lot.
Denny's parking lot is where the Twilight Zone is. That's the real location of.
That's where you can pick up some C-section scars and some abuse stories. It's where the strippers go to die.
Waffle House. Don't forget Waffle House.
It's true.
I love me a Waffle House.
Mhm.
The sausage gravy. I know it's probably come, but I love it.
Yeah. I mean, once you get it, yep. Then you go to Antarctica.
So in the Mojave in Southern California, there's Hollow Earth entrances all up and down California. Actually, I don't know what's up with people over your way, but
Mhm.
they're into their Hollow Earth entrances.
Yeah.
Then in Big Bend in Texas, Grand Canyon, Arizona, the Superstition Mountains, kind of throughout the Southwest. And interestingly enough, each of the regions kind of have their own kind of take on it. In the Appalachian area, it's kind of the darker, goblins and creatures and these weird experiences. In California, Mount Shasta, you have the, Stephen Greer selling his meditate to the aliens course, give him $4,000 and he can meditate a UFO to you, or, and it's kind of the city under Mount Shasta is supposed to be one that's very nice and there's no Daros, none of the evil guys, and it's all nice and good.
You pay your $4,000 and then you get a drunk entomologist Russian coming in on a magic carpet. Made
Yeah,
of
you're
bees.
gonna go camping with a
Hey.
weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in kind of the Arizona, New Mexico area, it's more of the like secret government underground base. You have the like Bob Lazar story where he worked under the earth in Groom Lake inside the mountainside, and that's where they had the UFOs that they were trying to reverse engineer, and that whole story. It's much more of like a human kind of theory when it's in that region. And then going into the Hollow Earth, you also have the idea of these lost mines, the lost gold mines and things, and the lost Dutchman's mine that they just found the Hollow Earth. A fun theory, though those guys just died out there. But, it's a fun theory. There was one explorer, I forget his name, but he went down the Grand Canyon and he found an entrance into this weird cave with mummies and weird artifacts, and it was long corridors in this kind of honeycomb shape. And the Smithsonian supposedly sent people to investigate. There's documents for it. And, it's interesting, but nothing really confirmed on any of that. And it was probably just it was probably an exaggeration. The guy probably found some, native adobe homes built into the cliff sides and told people it was the massive tunnel or something like that. Those things happened, and the sources are from newspapers at the time. They're all kind of from these, again, paranoid sources from letters and weird magazines and these one-offs in newspapers. It's not the most reliable grouping of information. But the people who are supposedly experiencing it are convinced. They're like 100% in that this is happening. This is a real, situation. I'm hearing these voices and they're coming from inside the earth. It's pretty, it's a serious belief that's kind of formed behind it.
Well, I think if you've ever met one of those people, and I think we all have met one of those people that's just so insane that you think that they're not insane.
Yeah.
And then they keep talking to you and you're like, oh, this person's nuts. And
that was
but
the
then
B guy who told me that story the
Yes.
first time.
and then you walk away from them and you go, was that person like Jesus or something? Like,
Yeah, was that even real?
was I supposed to believe them though? Like, was I supposed to go with this person and follow what they said? Like, not that I was anywhere near that, but I've met those people before in my life and they've stuck with me.
Wasn't there, I think it's a hole in the earth. I think it's in Russia, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but apparently there's this like cavern hole thing that goes into the earth and they've heard screaming coming from it. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, that's the story. I believe they say that it's just like air and gas escaping, and that's like what's making that weird noise.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it, because I think there is a recording,
I think I've heard it.
It doesn't really sound like screaming. It's kind of, it is just like a weird kind of echoey thing.
Yeah, they said
there was. That was it. That doesn't sound like screaming. That's white noise.
They said they think like it's the tunnel to hell.
Yeah, that's one of those fun like creepypasta Instagram posts that hops around. I'm not really sure. I'll add it to the list when I visit Russia. The Gerbinikov Museum and that weird screaming hole.
Well, is it the one? Is it the gate to hell or whatever? Is it that one that's on fire, or is that a different one?
I think this is a different one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because that's a
one's a
different one. That
different
one's
one.
just like I don't know, constantly burning.
Yeah, they have one of those in like Pennsylvania. It was a coal mine that caught on fire and it just keeps burning.
I think that this one's like Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan.
Yeah, yeah, they have a couple of them.
Yeah, real nice.
Though Siberia is another location supposedly of hollow earth entrances in the Ural Mountains where like, the people go missing and stuff. Supposedly
concentration camps.
You can get in there. There's of course there's Tibet. The Shangri-La supposed to be somewhere under the ground. Though there's a great, or I don't know if it's still open. There was a great Chinese food restaurant called Shangri-La here in Sarasota.
After taking your medication, you
start... I don't know if it's still open. They found a cat skeleton out behind it one time.
Oh shit!
And I still ate there because it was good.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I don't care if it's cat. It's
delicious.
That orange chicken slaps.
Well, yeah. Well, on this show, we don't believe there is a Taiwan or a Hong Kong or a Tibet.
It's true.
Oh, good.
It's all one China to us.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, exactly.
I meant there's an entrance in China.
Yep. And also in other China.
Of course, some people say the pyramids, you can get in under there in Egypt. A couple more places in North Africa. Pretty much anywhere in Europe, supposedly there's an entrance.
What about that big hole in, it's either an ocean or a lake, and it's just this perfect hole that just goes.
I've seen it, but
it's clickbait.
I think that's in California, isn't it?
I have no idea.
The whirlpool that goes like forever
and just keeps going. Yeah, I don't know if that's a Hollow Earth portal.
Was in California. I think I have it in my research notes.
Yeah,
hold on, give me a
second. just thought I'd ask. Not that
I
was going to go in it.
Pulling this up. Let's see, where else can you get in? South America, Brazil. There's a couple entrances. there's a weird story by a guy. Ooh, I lost my camera. There's a weird story by a theosophist down there, and they are kind of the people who studied Madame Blavatsky but didn't become Nazis. They're like the other side of that coin. And he supposedly had people working for him, and they found a cave that they hiked into for 3 days, and eventually they came across a town with like a bunch of dwarves in it. And then they like ran back. Another one said he took a shaft. He descended a shaft 300 feet, and there was like at the bottom a weird plexiglass wall, and on the other side of it there was an 8-foot Atlantean, like tall, blonde. He had 6 fingers and 6 toes, which was a weird detail. And he told them that interestingly enough, he told them pretty much the same thing that the Friendship kind of said in that case, that the world's going to nuke itself, and that you guys need to get your family and move into the hollow earth with us.
Interesting.
That was what he was trying to sell them.
I've got a question here from one of our listeners. Dan said, "Are sinkholes surprise entrances? Someone tunneling up? Genuine question for understanding."
Maybe there's some interesting in Russia. There's like the Tunguska event, which was this kind of massive explosion and crater that formed. No one's really sure how that happened, because it was, it was a sinkhole, but also an explosion. They thought it was maybe a meteor, but they never found any meteor fragments. So it's this kind of weird incident. Some people say it's a teleportation or something like that gone wrong. Who knows? Sinkholes here in Florida are just because everything's limestone and it's all water. This whole state's gonna sink. And the world might be better for it. Who am I to say? I'm not gonna argue with Poseidon. So I think maybe the answer to your question is depends on the location.
Now I have a question, but it's going to take a visual. Okay, so let's say this is the Earth. Mm-hmm. All right. And inside the Earth, it's hollow. Oh, what's this? Why, it'd be our brand new mug you can get on the sensiblesociopathpodcast.com/shop.
That's hollow Earth technology.
That's
the same
right. Look, it's
that
hollow
the Nazis used to beat the Allies at Antarctica. It was the mugs.
It even holds liquids.
I love it. That's so cool. How's it taste? Hollow, earthy?
Mm-hmm. Tastes like my favorite podcast in my mouth. Sorry, I just had to do that. Oh, by the way, do us a favor, smash the like button, shoot that share-o, and sub as hard as you can. Sorry, Chaz.
No worries. I don't know. I got a couple more places. Let's see. Australia. You can go pretty much anywhere in Australia. Mm-hmm. Any of those mountains.
Get down under the Earth's crust.
With this list, the Earth's more like a Swiss cheese than hollow, because there's just a lot of pretty much anywhere you can get in. The UK, all over the UK. In North Africa, other places than Egypt, in Algeria, mountains, there's supposed to be some places. We already did Siberia. Mexico and the Yucatan, supposedly the cenotes. So those would be sinkholes that some say, if you go deep enough, those will lead you to the hollow earth. Some weird stories there. And in the volcanoes around Mexico City, anywhere with a volcano, they say you can get in. And
hard way.
I think that kind of leads to the point of where the hollow earth is real, because there's hundreds of thousands of miles of underground tunnels and caves and pathways and things, and besides the paranoid people writing letters, there's a bunch of people who have had weird interactions, you know, in these places, whether it's ghost interactions or, you know, they saw a Bigfoot run into a cave. There's a couple good videos from people exploring abandoned mines on YouTube and like hearing weird noises and whispers and seeing, there's this one guy, he's in there alone and this chain just starts whipping back and forth. And the best part is he doesn't do ghost content. He's just a guy who explores old mines and he's
Nice.
just freaked out.
I think I've seen that one before.
Yeah, there's some good ones out there. So it's a thing that occurs, and you know, it's kind of like being in a creepy hotel. Being underground puts you in this, you know, frame of mind. And like I suggest with my research, you can get into that frame of mind with psychedelics. Some people can get there with meditation. And sometimes if you just find yourself in a creepy place, you can get there accidentally. And I think the hollow earth it exists in those thousands of tunnels, not in necessarily in an entirely physical way. Maybe it's a realm that, you know, or many realms that you just get from tripping out a little bit when you're under the ground, when your primal brain activates and it clashes with your rational brain and you start seeing these weird things. A good example of this is trapped miners. A lot of the times they come back with these weird stories. There was one in, I want to say it was Kentucky, where 22 people were trapped. And at one point while they were trapped for like a week, they said the wall in the cave just opened up. There was a bright light and this dude in like a workman's clothes stepped out and said, "Don't worry guys, you'll be rescued in 2 days." You know, just hang in there.
Weird.
And they
all
killed him and ate him.
They should have, but they were too tired at that point.
Did they all saw it?
Yes. There's I believe it was a group of 3 who saw it.
Weird.
And there was a 4th guy down there that they never found. But they saw this and they all described it the same. There was another group who saw the Pope when they were down there, you know, and so these are kind of these hallucinatory situations, but they were rescued in 2 days and there was no way for them to know that. They had no time reference. They had nothing to, you know, they had no idea how 2 days would have, you know, occurred, but they timed it out and they were like, yeah, oh shit, you guys saw this at this point. And that was the you know, this weird information and from these encounters is something that occurs again and again. And you have, if you go back to the hellier kind of situations, you know, you have weird footprints of 3-toed goblins coming from caves, Bigfoot footprints coming from caves. All these kind of, again, there's the, everyone's seen that map that goes around of the missing 411 cases and the cave systems in the US. They line up. There's this kind of, these more cavernous areas are, you know, not necessarily linked, you know, just because there's a correlation doesn't mean it's causation, but it is a spooky thing. And, you know, people have noticed.
I have a quick question for you.
Mhm.
Kat wants to know, is there any places in Canada?
You know, I didn't write down any Canadian locations. I'm sorry, Canadian listeners. I didn't have any, but I don't know. Look into it. I'm sure you could find one. It does seem like these stories. If you want, I have a website to recommend. You can go to, there's shaverton.com.
DickShaver.com.
If you want to get really weird, get into the real hollow earth, you got to go to angelfire.com /
Damn, that's old school.
/ Branton / Red Book. The Red Book is this weird project. So you know how they had the Blue Book project, the CIA did that one. It was their first kind of UFO investigation. So supposedly this is the red book into the Hollow Earth investigation, but it's just put together by a bunch of weirdos. It's a really deep cut, but they've dug up a bunch of these Shaverton letters from the old magazines and things, and they've really put together some comprehensive information. But yeah, it's Angel Fire style content, so it's
Nice.
bright red and black, and your eyes are gonna hurt.
That's amazing.
But you're gonna know the truth about the Hollow Earth.
I didn't even know that was still a thing.
It's apparently it's still kicking.
That's awesome. And so what do you think? Do you think you'll be going to these going to explore any of these places, or is it better just to read the experiences from the outside, I guess?
Well, everything I've read says don't look into the Hollow Earth. Like, this is a dangerous, it's a death sentence. So naturally, I'm definitely going to do it. I've got a few ones planned. First up is Brown Mountain. I've got already kind of set up investigation for there. But yeah, I'm trying to hit a couple of places in the U.S. Superstition Mountains in Arizona, and
Stevie Wonder, yeah.
What's that?
Stevie Wonder. That's where he came up with his hit song "Superstition."
That, of course, that's going to be the soundtrack for that investigation.
Yeah.
Are you going to be filming these?
I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the research. I've already done a bunch of research collecting the stories and, getting into understand the mythology behind each location. But I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the research yet. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it, how to put it out. But yeah, I'm excited to go and get in some caves and maybe take some substances and get weird, see if I can see some aliens.
Now, I was kind of thinking about this, and I wanted to ask you. Well, first of all, have you ever smoked marijuana?
Never.
Okay. Once. But let's say you did.
Definitely not currently.
Yeah. Definitely not right off screen.
No, that hasn't been happening.
So there's two different types of marijuana. There's or there's probably more than that, but there's the sativa and the indica, and I believe is it the sativa that's more of a heady high and the indica that's more of a body high?
That is correct.
So not that I would know, but
I don't know how I know that either.
Absolutely, yeah. This is all speculation.
Horticultural magazine.
Yeah, exactly. My microbiology teacher, he was cool. So what would be your preference if you had ever tried it?
I like I've consumed it in places where it is legal prior for this story. I like indicas. I like the body high, though. If I'm doing this kind of stuff, research projects, got to do the sativa, keep me awake. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, and most people here in the States think it's horrible, but in Europe, it's normal. Pop a little tobacco in there, keeps you awake.
Okay.
And
good to know.
Is that when you're looking at the percentages, because if you go to one of those places where it's legal, you can get like 30% one, 70% the other. Like if somebody wanted to go trip and they were in a, they went to a cave and it was very dangerous and dark and they had a flashlight with very few minutes of battery left, what would be the recommended mix of a hybrid marijuana? 70-30 or something like that?
That's a loaded question because everyone's got their preference and like what they prefer and what they like. Me, I like to be blast me off, man. I'll smoke whatever you got.
Okay. Right.
I'll hang out. I'll be cool. I'm
it's
fine
all research, right?
Yeah, right. I'm all right. But everyone has their personal preference. It's definitely something, especially when I'm doing investigations and research, dosing out. I always try to go to a location first and see how comfortable I would be there and, what kind of limitations there are. and those kinds of things. It's very by situation, and also because of the legality of these experiments, access to certain things is sporadic. Of course, I've never conducted any of these experiments illegally in any location.
Sometimes you just gotta huff glue and look at the
that,
sky.
that hasn't happened. They're not gonna read the book, but you know,
Yeah.
they're not gonna dig that deep. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. No, but
They'll never catch me.
It's interesting because so many people, I guess I would assume I would like the headier high if that was going to be like, I'd want it for the creativity or for the, I don't know, if that's what I was, you know, going for, or trying to see ghosts or you know, UFOs or whatever it is. But it just seems like a lot of people just really like the mellower body high stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's again, it's a preference. It's like wine or cigars. I used to sell cigars in a shop to golfers. And you know, everyone wants to know what's the best cigar, and at that job I was always taught the most expensive. But here's the truth: you can tell.
Mhm.
No one can tell. You know what I mean? And it's like wine. They do the double-blind studies with the wine connoisseurs. They don't know what's out of a box and what's out of Ben Franklin's cellar. They have no frame of reference. You know, it's just what you like. And the marijuana's definitely hit that phase where it's like, oh, this is a blueberry Kush OG sour with a blend of, all right, go fuck, you know, like I'll smoke it, like give me the thing, I don't care, you know. And it's you're getting these certain ones where they're super expensive because they're exclusive and things like that, and it's like buying a bottle of $200 wine. Like you're just doing that for you. You know, it doesn't actually really make it any better. If you really want something stronger, just buy the hash oil, you know what I mean? Like there's the stronger things out there. Buy an edible, buy one of those cookies. They blast off on those ones. They make them ridiculous now.
Suppository. Yeah.
So you know, it's when it comes to, oh, this is the best, and this one, it's whatever. I like to mix it up. I get the hybrids, I get the indigos, whatever you got.
I'm the same way with sausage gravy. I know what you mean.
No, for me that has to be Waffle House.
Okay.
Something about the big tin that they've never cleaned. Just adds a flavor.
I want the skin on the top. Just
the film. That's the best part.
It's like putting a scab over a dry biscuit.
Oh,
I get the large hash browns with the sausage gravy. That's
All
the
right.
move.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, I mean, do you think that there is a hollow earth and that there's creatures living in it?
I think that the hollow spaces beneath the earth are definitely, I guess I struggle with the right word, because I don't want to say haunted, because that
Inhabited, maybe?
right. Yeah, it's a I guess other researchers would call it a liminal space.
Okay.
And it's one of these spaces that, you know, it's unnatural for humans. Ever since we were fighting mammoths and dinosaurs with sticks, you know, the saber-toothed tiger lives in the cave, the bear lives in the cave. Stay away from the cave and these places. They're not for humans. And because of that, there's a something in our biology that puts us in a frame of mind where we're maybe seeing the dangers of a different reality. Whatever it is, it's something that's giving people legitimate experiences. Something's, you know, occurring under there. I definitely think it's more hollow than it is flat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I've never really seriously thought about it until I saw Hellier, and you know, supposedly there's these, you know, cave goblins or whatever running along the tunnels, the caves underneath the the mountains, and
Like Fraggles.
exactly, and it seemed kind of legit. And it's
Very,
fun to think about.
very interestingly, I came across in a Jacques Vallée book
Jacques
a
Lalanne?
report
Vallée.
from it was the like turn of the 1800s, start of the 1800s or something, of a woman in Kentucky describing these weird pale figures flying around the mountaintop, and they were like floating down and investigating them and things. And it kind of sounds like how the Kentucky goblins floated. And it was this really, really early version of kind of the Kentucky goblin story.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see that this folklore, it's persistent, you know, it's something that seems to be tied to these areas and these mountains, and it's you know, something that people have been experiencing over hundreds of years, kind of like UFOs and anything else. Bigfoot, no one really classes hollow earth phenomenon with those things, but the closer you look at it, there's definitely the same amount of weird stories and encounters there.
Kat says it's like the kids that go missing and end up miles and miles over mountains, and there's just no possible way they can make that trek.
Yeah, that's in the missing 411 stuff. It's you know, he thinks, David Paulides, the writer, and I guess I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put words in his mouth. He heavily implies that it's Bigfoot and that he's taking people, that he uses the creek beds and the water to cover up his footprints, and that's why they disappear near water and those kinds of things. But yeah, there's an adjacent idea that it's the goblins inside the caves. Or you could just say that since there's caves underneath those places, there's a heavy CSE effect, the cavity structure effect from Gerbinikov, and they're just getting teleported randomly. You know, they have the caves generating this effect from below, and maybe they walk under a hornet's nest. They get it from above, and it mixes in the right amount of, you know, it's interestingly enough, only specific kinds of people that phenomenon occurs to. It's usually kids, or mentally impaired people, or hyper intelligent people. Those seem to be
interesting.
You better watch out.
You gotta be careful. Watch out for those the state parks, because those are the three subgroups that seem to disappear in that kind of fashion.
I'm all three. Yeah.
So a
Kid,
perfect
mentally
storm, it
impaired,
seems like, creates that.
So I actually saw an example of CSE once, which cavity structure effect. I don't know if you've heard of it. And
Just now, actually, yeah.
yeah, when I was probably about 10 years old, there was this large tree that was just old and dead, and there was a man who had put an extension ladder up against it, and he was probably like 15 feet off the ground with a chainsaw trying to cut through the limb, and he didn't realize it was a completely hollow limb full of bees.
Oh, shit.
So I just see, and I don't know why I was watching him, probably because he was doing something dangerous, but I was close enough that I could see bees start coming out as he's cutting through it with like one hand leaned up against it.
Oh.
And there weren't any other branches around. So when he realized it, he fell out with the ladder, and the chainsaw stayed in the tree. And he fell out. He did get, well, he ran. He probably got hurt, but he got up and ran.
Oh my God.
And I just remember the chainsaw still being stuck in that later. So I guess he
Like
probably
one of
got
those
some way to
attacks
kill
in a
him.
video game where you shoot the hornet's nest and it kills the guy.
That was pretty much it was like a
That's horrifying.
real life, video game or movie.
CSE effect in action.
Yep. That plus gravity.
It works. It's real.
Yeah. So anyways, that was that's probably what happened to your webcam. Are you in a tree right now?
I think I'm still waiting for the day I see a man in black. And the first thing I'm going to ask him is it the bees? Is that why you're here? Is
Yeah.
that why you've come. Which one was it? Which theory is it?
Well, it's just interesting because multiple times on the X-Files, they talk about bees, you know what I mean? Because the whole point is like the government is, creating or in cahoots with aliens and for whatever reason, bees keep popping up.
Yeah, it's definitely in my research been this weird kind of chain of synchronicity that's occurred with the bees. Just having it be noticed in the book because it was that weird throwaway paragraph, and a couple of people noticed it. And then for your after your anecdote, I did some weird research. I got some scientific studies about how bees, when they build their nests, they ignore gravity. Like they do it without they align it opposite of how they should. And bees also have these special hairs that sense gravitational direction. And they thought that they had those hairs so they could build their nests right. But they don't do that with their nests. So they have no idea what these hairs are for. But they sense the direction of gravity. Perhaps it's because they have anti-gravity chambers in their thorax.
It's like
adding up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do the same thing with my testicles. The gravity.
Oh my
Spread
God.
them out and flap them.
Yeah, I'm like, which way am I facing? Okay. Am I upside down right now?
Down, down.
We're actually coming up on the end of the show.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
Wow.
So, Chaz, do you have anything that you want to plug? Anything you want people to check out?
Check out my website, chazofthedead.com, or I'm on social media at chazofthedead, Twitter, Instagram. The book still out there, Paranormal Expeditions, Hunt for the Friendship.
It's a good book. You guys should check it out.
It's in the comments right now, it's in the description.
Cool.
Yeah, if you like weird stuff, weird stories like the ones I've been talking about tonight, it's full of that kind of stuff, as well as my on-the-ground research and some interesting investigations and psychedelic experiments, all kinds of good stuff in that. So go check that out. And yeah, look for weird articles coming from me and all kinds of places.
Awesome. And you can check us out. Well, you can check out our new website, the sensiblesociopathpodcast.com, which is also has our shop. We have you can get 4 different types of mug. They're the same mug, but you can get the yellow, red, blue, and black. Also shirts and sweatshirts, and we have SenSocs.
Nice.
I forgot to mention that, but you can check that out. It's great on mobile too, so check that out. That's all made possible by our Patreon people that are donating to us on Patreon, so that we can have a website and all that fun stuff. So thank you very much to our contributors.
And thanks to Chaz. Thanks for coming on. It was a good show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, Chaz, you are very entertaining every time and very informative, and it's always a very interesting conversation. So certainly appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Talk about weird stuff. It was awesome. Good night, guys.
Bye.
See you later. So you can follow us on Instagram at the Sensible Sociopath Podcast. Listen to us on all major podcasting platforms, and subscribe to us here on YouTube or also on Rumble, and we're on BitChute. So once again, everyone, thank you for checking us out. Roma, I'm out of here.
Good night, guys.
Best podcast in the world. The world would not be the same.
I like it.
No wonder my anxiety's so high.
Few people laughed. Few people cried.
Oh, what's in the box?
Most people were silent.
And that was it.
Now I am become death,
Sounds like a bad time.
the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, so this doesn't seem like a great idea to me.
I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
You didn't tell me any of that. That's crazy.
Well, Roma, when you're a hero, you don't tell everyone until you're on your podcast.
I'm about to hear some shit.
We all need to laugh.
I think just sitting down and, listening to
The Sensible Sociopath. This is the shit you're supposed to be watching.
Gen X is gonna love it. Millennials are gonna be like, I'm offended.
You have offended me.
Also, my dog has a giant dick.
Oh my god, that's enormous.
I love it.
It's still a racist dog whistle.
Where you kind of have like a rotating cast of characters.
We're talking baby seals, eagles, wolves.
I'm just glad we're not going to have to eat with racism anymore.
It's worse than the butthole.
We're technically considered propaganda.
It is very contagious.
I think we really need to talk about environmentalism.
Like, are they studying pine cones?
Make yourself a nice stingray omelet. That's how Steve Irwin died. Cholesterol.
It's fucking delicious.
His father had ended up killing his mother and committing suicide.
In that order?
That's diabolical. I like it.
They had an apple gun where you could shoot Bigfoot.
Has she always been retarded?
I mean, she could have had a head injury.
You don't know anything about tartar sauce.
He had picked up a 400-pound statue and was like walking around with it.
Was the statue racist?
I'd like to think so.
It's like how they invented bacon and avocado to make a turkey sandwich tolerable.
I have a fear of fire.
Like a werewolf? Daniel, you've been our greatest viewer. Well, Daniel and Sarah and Katrina.
Daniel!